Good evening, everyone, and welcome to an episode of my podcast, Dark Thoughts. We live in a society driven by shallow concepts, such as people desiring fame and instant wealth. We are seeing more and more of this shallowness, especially on social media. The technology isn't to blame, the people using it are. In today's Darker Thoughts, we shall examine a case that happened here in Canada recently, which highlights, in my opinion, some of the issues surrounding social media, especially when combined with clinical narcissism. There have been heinous crimes recorded and posted online, often by perpetrators themselves. This is not the case today. The event we are examining happened on March 29th of 2023 in Vancouver, Canada. I've pulled most of the stuff for this podcast from various articles. I will be posting links to it on my YouTube account when I upload this video later. Shall we begin? It was on March 29th, 2023 that Paul Schmidt and his fiancée, Ashley Umali, and their 3-year-old daughter, Erica, went to a Starbucks located on the corner of Pender and Granville Streets for something to drink. Little did they know that their lives would forever be altered in a horrific way due to the actions of not one man, but two. Inside that Starbucks was a violent man and another morally bankrupt goat man. What sparked the incident that ended Mr. Schmidt's life? He asked another man, later identified as Inderdeep Goza, not the vape around his daughter. Mr. Goza responded to this request by stabbing Mr. Schmidt to death in front of his daughter and fiancé. The patrons of the Starbucks stood by and watched this incident happen with indifference while eating and drinking. Have we come to the point as a society that violence is so commonplace that people can literally sit there and watch it happen? I've read lurid accounts of medieval executions where people actually sat and ate snacks and drank goblets of ale while watching people be beheaded. Are we heading back into an era like that, where this is considered acceptable behavior? I, for one, hope not. Good tea. I'm sipping a cup of orange pico as I'm working, but I digress. One possible explanation for the inaction of the Starbucks patrons could be what is commonly called the bystander effect. The bystander effect is defined as a phenomenon in which people fail to offer assistance in emergencies when other people are present. The expectation is that someone else will alert the authorities. An infamous case of this effect was the 1964 rape and murder of Kitty Genovese, where 21 people watched her being murdered from the windows of their apartments and failed to call the police. The second villain of our tale makes his presence known at this point. The attack was filmed by a TikToker who later uploaded it onto TikTok by the name of Alex Bodger. Did Mr. Bodger do the correct thing and call the police to assess the victim? No. Instead, he took a selfie of himself, smiling gleefully, with Mr. Schmidt bleeding to death in the foreground. He then proceeded, as I mentioned earlier, to upload a video of the crime. It's my opinion, based on what I've read recently, is that he has some main character syndrome happening with this guy. I watched the interview on Global where he tried to justify his actions, saying, oh, I froze up, and oh, I didn't know what to do. Dude, you uploaded a video onto TikTok where you were smiling like the Cheshire Cat over somebody's dead body. So, that's a whole load of hot air that you didn't know what to do. Main character syndrome is a new concept that has been on the rise and is being currently defined by various armchair academics as well as professionals. It's essentially a self-delusion where somebody believes they're a protagonist in a story or an ongoing saga, and that they are the main character of it. What it is essentially is a form of narcissism. A 2018 study that was conducted by Swansea University in the United Kingdom tracked 74 participants aged 18 to 34 for over 4 months while they were using social media, and all of them by the end of the study, which was ended 6 months early by the way, showed traits of extreme narcissism, including several of them actually committing criminal offenses to get likes, as well as people following them on the social media platforms. Researchers also discovered that areas in these people's brains when they did PET scans of them while using social media lit up like a Christmas tree. In the words of one researcher, it was almost like these people were on a high similar to a dose of heroin while they were on social media. So it's definitely telling that social media can be addictive. It's also founding that traits of narcissism were heightened by social media. In short, I think we're either creating narcissists or perpetuating the ones that we already have. We've all heard the and I messed up, but it's not the end of the world. We all heard the epic choose life monologue from the British film Trainspotting, in which a younger Ewan McGregor delivered a tirade that was tinged with nihilism, which in of itself was a mockery of the consumer culture brought into being by Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan era of conservative politics. Messing up proves I'm human. And no, I will not be editing this out. But I digress again. We are currently living through part 2 of that era of politics and division with hyper-political correctness and hyper-materialism that was a result of conservative politics. This is especially present on all social media platforms. It is like the speech from Trainspotting, except with Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter replacing household appliances. Choose looking up ex-lovers and rehashing your dead relationships. Choose whatever social outrage that is making the rounds today, even if it has no direct bearing upon your life. Choose to show how great you are, even if your greatness is as shallow as a paper cup. Even though most people see social media as mostly benign and harmless, the opposite couldn't be more true. It has changed the very nature of our society, which is unsurprising as technology continues to surge ahead. Even today with AI and ChatGPT. In short, it has caused more divisions in our society than anything since the 2016 election of Donald Trump, which was largely fueled by social media. In short, we have created a generation of narcissists, not just with social media. However, it has acted as gasoline onto the fire of narcissism, in my opinion. It's all this ideas of materialism, instant wealth, fame, and every other cause du jour is neoliberal ideals taken to an extreme. The competitions for followers, approvals, and retreats has become an all-consuming activity. Some users I've even observed, and I myself am slightly guilty of this too, have tried to create idealized versions of themselves, which is just a persona and not who they are in all reality. This being said, it is time to state an obvious truth, that most social media sites are comprised of users who are there for a myriad of reasons. The main reason in the beginning with most of these networks was so that people could connect with one another. However, that is being replaced by a cult of self-obsession and grandiosity. Every life event is documented with a hashtag, no matter how trivial. This is a learned behavior where validation causes a dopamine response, which was a discovery that these researchers at Swansea University actually documented in their study. This has given rise to a disturbing trend that I don't think is going away. The trend of using every tragedy as a means for promoting oneself through empty virtue signaling. Putting a Ukrainian flag filter on your social media account is great. But how about going out and doing something like giving money to the Ukrainians or the organizations helping them? Or buying the remedial supplies and donating them? Most people will balk at doing that. Why? Because that's work. That's why. There's also been instances of people making like they're going to help out in the wake of a natural disaster or a tragedy that happens. However, they're only there for 5 minutes just to get a quick shot for Instagram, then they're gone. This has been documented several times with hurricanes in Florida and several other tragedies where these wannabe influencers will show up, nail a few nails into a board to help board up a window, then they're gone just as quick. According to psychologist Lisa Firestone and researcher Sean Bergman, most personality traits in people have been established by the age of 7. The increase in parental coddling and school participation trophies given by well-meaning teachers don't make the children grow up feeling great. Instead, the opposite. Teenagers and young adults given participation trophies as part of a study have reported feeling empty and insecure when compared to a group who was given constructive criticism and feedback on their strengths and weaknesses. Instant gratification is a way for someone to fill a void in one's life, and so is getting attention and doing attention-seeking behavior on social media. The way that today's society is geared up, it has created a feedback loop from hell, to borrow a euphemism from author Mark Manson. Social media is one big lie. The lie of my life is better than yours, through people posting curated images of their lives. This is just one big illusion. Nobody's life is greater than the other person's. Just because they post that they're going to Disney World or they appear to have the perfect marriage, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors in that household. For all we know, they could be facing eviction or be one missed payment from having their electricity turned off. Narcissism comes from a place of emptiness. I tend to think that a lot of this narcissism we're seeing in society comes from my generation, the millennials and the current Zoomer generation, being raised with empty parenting. Parents who raise their children with empty forms instead of substance, and handing out presents and participation trophies instead of giving them their actual physical presence in their life as well as guidance. Multiple studies have shown that children raised in this way are more prone to depression and substance abuse, as well as narcissistic behavior in later life due to feeling insecure and ultimately unwanted as children. Psychologists and psychiatrists have reported seeing an explosion of narcissism, as well as borderline personality disorder in documented cases. Between 2001 and 2010, there was a 45% uptick in people being diagnosed with BPD and NPD, as reported by author W. Keith Campbell in his book, The Narcissism Epidemic. It's a little bit of a dry read, but worth it if you want to see some of the data and facts and figures that this guy has collected. It's actually quite frightening, the amount of narcissism in our society. This correlates with a shift in societal values, away from acceptance in community and affiliation to external values such as fame, money, image. I've personally seen some of this play out in my friend groups, as well as in the behavior of some of the university students that I worked with in the past. I hate to say this, but I think we're going to be seeing narcissism and more of it in society for a long time yet to come. The only thing we can do is try to be mindful of our own behavior, and ultimately we can only control ourselves and our values, nobody else's. But that's about all. I bid you all a good evening and a good night. Good morning, everyone. I thought I would do an early morning stream here on Instagram. And in this episode, we shall be talking about toxic tribalism. Belonging to a social group is nothing new into our being. It is from ancient times via evolution that has been bred into us. We are not designed to survive without being a part of some group or some community of some sort. This was how Babylon, Ur, and Uruk, along with other first cities, came to be. People back then realized there was strength and protection in numbers. The early cities and villages were often comprised of people who came from the same backgrounds and were oftentimes related. So basically you had collections of families in these early cities. Tribal relativity fluctuates and is often changed during our lifetimes. Religion also developed as a way to identify with others, along with social and ethnic identities. These ties allowed our ancestors to survive into modernity, which gave rise to us. Though tribalism in our modern times has given rise to horrific events, ethnic cleansing and genocide are some of these results of bad tribalism. The dark side of tribalism is bullying, characterizing, and scapegoating another group. Whether this is another religious group, ethnic, racial, or political group, it happens. It's very apparent today in our modern day politics. Politics forms the basis of most of our postmodern tribalism. Red, green, or blue party, it doesn't matter anymore. All of them engage in the same tribal type politics of division. And that more and more people identify with their tribe on whatever issues. Is to the point that people who are undiscerning follow without questioning anything at all. If they do question the narrative, they are promptly banished from the group. Tribalism can be a positive, though. Fascism is tribalism dialed up to 15 on the radio knob. This has caused mass murders and most wars in recorded history. Not only that, but there was a terrorist attack in Texas where a white supremacist ran his car through a group of Mexican migrants. And that was basically caused by tribalism and dialed up to fascism. Tribalism overrides our better angels and that of most people. Most genocides you will find have an element of we must wipe out the other group where they're a threat, whether that threat is real or imagined. This arises because people become invested in a tribe or political movement. People can become capable of anything from murder to gang rape in a mob. All it takes is one charismatic leader to inspire people to become werewolves. We've seen this in various tyrants throughout history, from Hitler to Philip of Macedon to Nero Caesar, to name a few. Then there are people who become their acolytes and cling to the beliefs of the tribe like a dying man to a fabled cure. They become dangerous when their absolute truth that comes from the tribe or an all-knowing leader is confronted. Tribalism destroys all political discourse. All you have to do is look at videos from the riots in 2020 as well as the stuff that went on in Berkeley between Antifa and Trump supporters to see that tribalism destroys any attempt at political discourse. It makes people lose the ability of rational thought. It is easy to spot someone who deals in tribalism and dog whistle politics. These people are the most self-righteous and narcissistic people you will ever see. I'll give you an example. Look at Donald Trump and how he seemed to have the answer for everything, and look at some of these social justice activists, how they have answers for everything. That is narcissism. You don't have the answer for anything. I know I don't. Anywho, they will defend the moral rightness of their position while demonizing the opposition. Name-calling, ad hominem attacks to outright calling for violence are their hallmarks. Most people, I find, especially online, parrot the view of their chosen tribe. They aren't willing to research or do any analyzing of the issues for themselves. There are a lot of misinformed people who are pushing agendas like NPCs in a video game. And this only drives the cultural and political divide, making it so nothing gets done due to mistrust. The best defense against tribalism is to gray pill yourself. Educate yourself on philosophy. Read articles from both sides of an argument. I find that philosophy can teach you self-control, and mastery over yourself, especially Stoic philosophy. You should also read up on propaganda and how groups from advertising agencies to the news media use it. You will find that propaganda has seeped into almost every facet of regular life, and that nearly everything nowadays has a political message of some sort. Tribalism should be a major concern for society given the pace of our technological advancement. AI technology, along with deep fakes, make the threat of tribalism even more alarming. Most recently, I saw a video on YouTube where somebody created a deep fake of Vladimir Putin, pretty much calling for a nuclear attack on the West. And this video was later proven to be a deep fake of him. And yeah, if they can create a convincing facsimile of Putin down to his voice, saying about how he's launching all the nukes at the West, then what else can people do with AI and deep fakes that could also drive the political divide? Safeguards need to be put into place to ensure that some group, whether it be Antifa or the Proud Boys or even somebody's grandma, doesn't get their hands on a military-grade drone, or even a random nut job who has whatever wacky political belief isn't able to buy a tactical nuclear device or a bioweapon off the black web. Or should I say dark web is a more agreed upon term. This is why we need to confront tribalism starting within ourselves. We have to strive to challenge our views, expand and refine our points of view. We should also be extra wary of dogma and people who seem to have all the answers. These people tend to turn out to be werewolves, like Hitler or Keith Raniere, the leader of the Nexium cult. Both these men turned normal individuals, such as you and me, into monsters. As a matter of fact, I was reading an article about actress Allison Mack and how Keith Raniere brainwashed her and a bunch of other women that went to his seminars into literally branding themselves with his initials and a few other things that aren't fit for on here. That should tell you how much. If a charismatic man can take a rich, popular actress and brainwash her, as well as a bunch of other people, and some of these women were university educated, and turned them into drones, then you should be really wondering about some of these ones that are in power or seeking power via tribalism. Like, these people were just normal people like you or me. Same as I find people need to read history. You will find that history is full of the crimes committed by charismatic men who charmed the masses. Like Hitler, turning a nation of people who were known for turning out such men such as Goethe into monsters. But I digress. We should all be cognizant of all that's around us, including who we're voting for, by really examining the issues and not just deciding on some hot button topic we feel passionately about. We should really dig into the characteristics of the men or the woman running for office instead of following blindly, because that's how dictators get into power. It's definitely food for thought, which is something I strive to get people to do with this podcast, is to sit and think about some of the things that are going on. I'm not here to convert anybody to any religion or anything. All I want them to do is to sit and to think. That is all. Until next time, take care of yourselves.